The first few weeks definitely were the hardest of my life. All right, I'm back for the third video of my series that I'm committed to doing and I really have been wanting to do for a while. Just wasn't sane enough, did not have the mental, emotional, physical capacity to do until now at 7 weeks. And I'm recording this all in one day, at least the first 3 videos, because I'm taking advantage of my sudden spark of energy. Thank you, Lord. But also because my baby has been sleeping pretty well today. I just resettled her down for her nap. So hopefully we'll have some time to go more into detail. So sorry if I'm talking a little softer, that's why. She's very sensitive to sounds. So I think she actually might be stirring a bit more than usual today because she is probably hearing my voice, even though we have a white noise machine going on. First of all, if you've been following along, thank you. My goal with all these videos really is not to scare anyone. It's not to sound ungrateful, because I'm so grateful to have a beautiful baby girl who is overall healthy and well and growing, an amazing husband, so supportive and so just like the best. I'm so grateful. But at the same time, realizing like it's been really hard. Like this newborn phase, they call it the newborn trenches for a reason. You really feel like you just went through war. And I don't know if I got into this, I don't think I did in the first video, but maybe I briefly mentioned, but it basically reminds me of like war veterans and how difficult it is to come back from something that is just so indescribable, so traumatic. Your whole reality has been altered. You can't see the world the same anymore. You can't see yourself the same, and you don't even have words adequate enough to process or describe like what you went through. And so my goal and mission here is to hopefully, like, despite still kind of being in it and just starting to slowly come out of all of it, while it's still fresh in my brain, to be able to communicate it out, because I just feel like there's not a lot of people talking about it like this. And I really wish I had been exposed to more of this before I had given birth and realized, oh wow, like it's not as easy. For this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about what I feel like has helped us kind of adjust and be better, and for me to be able to be here talking like this versus especially the first month. Oh my gosh, such a haze. I literally texted people like telling them I think I'm losing my mind. I was on the brink of insanity, and just, you know, the baby blues, postpartum anxiety, depression, the steep learning curve of like how do you take care of a baby and keep her alive, how like my changing dynamic with my husband and myself, everything was just like so much more exacerbated. And feeding challenges, sleeping challenges, those were also so difficult, and we just didn't know how to navigate a lot of it. Sorry, I'm looking at the monitor. Maybe I'll just come and bring her over and see if she sleeps better in my arms. Okay, we're back. I think she was just wanting to be held. She's in the 6 to 8 week range right now. She's 7 weeks old today. It's okay. Yeah, they tend to be a bit more clingy, a bit more fussy during this time. Although for us, I think nothing can compare to those first few weeks when she was nonstop screaming because of her reflux and GERD. And also, don't come after me. I know she's wearing a bib. It's very loose and I'm supervising her. She just has a lot of spit up randomly, and I used to be freaked out about spit up, like, oh my god, it's getting on everything, and now I'm just like used to it. She's been spitting up on so many different things, and we're just like, okay, our new norm is to do laundry like every other day now versus once a week. So that was an adjustment. This video, I wanted to talk about adjustments that we've basically been forced to realize, like, oh, this is new and this is gonna be different for this time being. So one of them is laundry. Just very practically speaking, when we first had her and, you know, she would like drool or spit up or pee on herself. I remember the first time when I was changing her, I think that was the first week or the second week, she peed while I was changing her. And I was like so surprised, like, to see a fountain as I'm changing her diaper. But that's happened several times since then. We've had many blowouts. She always happens to have these huge poops during the middle of the night, had to get under her clothes. Yeah, just so many things that we've basically had to change. One of the biggest ones for me is cleanliness and tidiness of our place. If you can see my background, like, this is just a glimpse. I mean, this is actually better than what it looks like in front of me and around me. Our place has never looked as messy as it has been. We still have our Christmas tree up and it is end of January now. Oh my gosh. And so yeah, it's just been craziness. And I used to you know, really be affected by like when things are cluttered and like not tidy. And I had a lot of anxiety about that. I remember the first few days when we came back from the hospital, things were starting to get messy and it just really bugged me. Like I've always been a person who like really likes tidiness and order and cleanliness. And I did that a lot during pregnancy too, like nesting, but I felt like frequent stages of nesting where I wanted to make sure things were orderly and organized. And you just see a lot of that kind of content, right, online, like on YouTube, like nest with me and like organize my diaper, you know, my changing station with me. And you just look at those things and you're like, oh my gosh, so beautiful. And that is just not reality. Like reality is everything is everywhere. I'm actually probably gonna, let me see if I can show you. Look at her. Look at this station. That's what ended up happening to our areas where I'm like, oh, like it can go here in this basket, in this pocket, and things are just piling up. And that's kind of just how it has to be now. And I think my brain has kind of reset and recalibrated those expectations. I don't know if you can see, but oh, she's smiling in her sleep. Oh my gosh. She's making a guest appearance, surprise guest appearance. But anyway, yeah, just it used to bother me a lot because I think I just had these high expectations of like, I want to be orderly and I need things to be tidy and clean for my own sanity. And that was the case the first few days when we came back from the hospital, me wanting to organize, even though I knew I needed to rest. Looking back, I mean, it's not my fault. I think I was just like wired that way, and it's hard to like force your brain to let go of things. It kind of just like takes some time and some getting used to. And I really genuinely think at this point now, I am used to the mess and I'm like, okay, it just doesn't bother me nearly as much anymore because I think just adjusting to our new reality has forced me to be like, this is not worth worrying about, because otherwise I'm just gonna be constantly worried and constantly anxious about the mess and disorganization. What also helps too is we do have two friends in particular, or one friend in particular, who is actually really good at organizing, and she helped the first week or second week. She came over, helped organize, and oh my gosh, it made a world of a difference. I have a friend coming tomorrow who, oh my gosh, bless her soul. I'm so grateful to have her as a friend, but she is coming also to help out. So basically having some help really makes a big difference. We don't have consistent help right now. It's mostly just like ad hoc for me personally, knowing that it's not going to be like this forever and we can always reach out for people to help out if needed. That's been a huge relief. I know it might sound silly for people who don't really care about how their place looks or orderliness or cleanliness, but really that has a big impact for me personally, and has had a big impact because I love when things are just like in its place. And it bugs me all the time. Like even when it was just me and Alex, and he would like, you know, put his jacket somewhere and I'm like, can you not like fling your jacket all over the place and like put it back in its rightful spot? Yeah, that's just been something I've had to let go and learn to let go. Another thing has just been sleep, just like being like, okay, we're just not gonna have large chunks of sleep for a while and we're just gonna have to go with it, you know, and push through. And I think that also takes time for your body to get used to, your mind to get used to. It's hard to expect yourself to adjust from having 8 hours of sleep, and I really took advantage. Like when I was pregnant, especially the second and third trimester, and I just like took it a lot easier, I just soaked in sleep. I took advantage because I knew everyone says you won't have sleep once you have kids, and it was, yeah, definitely an understatement. So I soaked in a lot of sleep, but the downside was I got used to having such good sleep, and then all of a sudden, like the shock to your system when you don't have any sleep, especially the first few days and weeks where you're feeding and she's crying and she won't stop crying, and then oh, it's already like time for her next feeding and there's no breaks, just like it's just ongoing. So that's what happened to us, and I felt like I was genuinely losing it. But you know, as we've gotten into better rhythms and better expectations, and she's also gotten better with her reflux, and our bodies also are adjusting to the less sleep, but also at the same time getting a bit more sleep than the first few weeks because she has been sleeping longer compared to what she used to. I would say the first few weeks definitely were the hardest of my life, of my adult life, of what I can remember. Just like super sleep deprived. Everything's a shock. Going through baby blues, postpartum anxiety, depression, you know, dealing with just so many things and wanting the best for your baby, but then she's like crying nonstop and you're like, what am I doing wrong, or how do I do this? One really big revelation I had, so this kind of piggybacks off of my previous video about anxiety, depression, and baby blues, which I had so severely. I got to a point, like I had more than a couple mental breakdowns the first few weeks. And then when her reflux symptoms were, I think it was at the peak, or it had gotten a bit better, I think, but then it was getting worse again. It's all a blur, but I basically broke down again, and I was just like feeling so hopeless and so defeated because I was basically for 4-5 weeks straight constantly researching, trying to figure out what is the root cause of her reflux so we can fix it. I just want to make sure, like, I want her to be a happy baby, like those calm and content babies that you see online. Like, how are those babies not crying all the time? And even taking her to the pediatrician, I'm like looking around, like all these babies, I'm like, how are they not crying all the time? Like, I'm confused how they're just sitting there content. This is a side note, which I'll probably talk more about in our feeding journey. Oh my gosh, that was so crazy, so challenging. I'll do another video about it, but I remember the first time we ever saw her content, when we gave her a bottle of formula, and we were like, whoa, what just happened? Who is this baby? We were actually worried because we were like, did we break her? Is she okay? Because she was so like milk drunk and content, and she just fell asleep right away. And we were like, this is so weird, because the only version of her we've known basically has been just the screaming version. So yes, I was so obsessed with trying to find the root cause of her reflux, also trying to figure out like, why is she crying, and like what do we do? And basically, you know, I had this come to Jesus moment, I guess you could call it, where I just broke down. I was like, God, you have been with us through this entire journey. Like, you've showed up in so many incredible ways, very evidently, like even from how he both gave us dreams of having her, and then we found out we were pregnant like soon after that, how we got her name, which is also a miracle, and it happened on this couch. I really want to talk about that with Alex, hopefully, maybe on our podcast, because it is just the most incredible story, totally 100% God too. And so I'm like, God, you clearly have been with us the entire way. This is not a surprise to you, but I am dying. Like, you see how hard it is and how much I'm suffering, and I know like you're in this, but I don't know what to do. Like, please help. I don't even know what to pray for, but I just need help. Like, give me your divine intervention. Like, I need you. And I would just say, like, this entire experience has been so humbling, the most humbling thing I've ever gone through. Yeah, it just really broke me, and an amazing thing happened, which is that night, for the first time since I had her, so basically the first time in maybe five and a half weeks, I felt peace. And that, along with the peace, came this revelation. It was like a fog lifted from my brain, and I felt just continued peace even the day afterwards. And ever since then, I have to say, I felt a lot better. Like, I actually don't think I've had any more mental breakdown episodes since that day, now that I think about it. But the big revelation for me was, you know, this baby, she's a human being. I don't know, it sounds silly saying it out loud, but I had basically subconsciously, and this is what I realized, what God helped me realize in the moment, was I'd been subconsciously kind of like treating her like a program to debug, you know, like at work, it's like, try to find the root cause, and make sure it doesn't happen again. And so I'm all about debugging. I'm all about getting to the root of things, which is not bad, you know, but I was so obsessed with that, to the point where I just couldn't see, you know, clearly that this was a human being. When human beings are going through hard things, you know, yeah, it's important to find the root cause eventually, and you want to do that as much as you can. But in the moment, what matters is they just need comfort. They need love. They need soothing. So instead of like being so fixated and frustrated, because I was so frustrated every time she was having a crying fit, which was like all the time, she cried way more than she was ever calm. Even now, we're still just getting out of that phase. I don't know. We'll see how this week goes. But today has been pretty good so far. Like, she's cried, but it's like normal. I feel like more normal amount crying. I do feel like her reflux is slowly getting better. Yeah, I basically had this revelation, like, she's a human. Let me comfort her. Let me do everything I can to just hold her, make her feel loved, soothe her. And it's okay if we don't like figure out the root problem right now. Like, one very specific example is like, I remember the first week, she would be crying. We're trying all the things, gas kicks, you know, bicycle kicks, gas exercises, burping, changing, you know, seeing if her diaper needs changing, if she's hungry, all the things, still crying. And I felt so defeated and so like, oh my gosh, like what is wrong? And Alex, you know, he has such a calm and peaceful presence just in general. But I also found out through my research, all my rabbit hole research, that men don't get triggered the way that women do when it comes to babies crying. Especially like for moms, we are biologically wired to get stressed when we hear our babies crying. That's like a survival mechanism to help protect them, and also our hormones and everything, you know, in combination. But for men, they're not affected the same way, and they tend to have just more a calmer energy, and babies pick up on that. So ironically, when you're more stressed, they also are stressed. And I was stressing about being stressed. That made everything more stressful. So anyway, Alex was really good and being able to soothe her, and I was like so surprised. I was like, how are you doing that? But in my mind, I'm like, but what's the use in soothing her when the root problem of her crying hasn't been identified? So she's gonna keep crying, right? But yeah, amazingly, this is what confused me. But also looking back, it's like so obvious now, you know, looking back, everything's always 2020 in hindsight. Human beings, like, even if we are going through something and we can't really untangle exactly why we're crying, exactly why we're going through something hard, but just the fact that someone is soothing us and we feel safe, we feel loved, that in itself is oftentimes enough to get by another day. When I watched her overnight, she would only sleep longest maybe like 20 minutes at a time. I don't know. It was just very short and very short-lived. But with Alex, when I tapped him in and was like, can you take over? She would sleep like 2 hours, 3 hours sometimes. I was like, how are you doing that? Because we haven't identified like the root of her crying. But sure enough, like, that's what I've been learning more and more, is like, she's a human being. She just needs love and safety. Even things like having a dim lit environment and playing relaxing music, trying to give her, we tried a baby massage yesterday. These little things, like, they matter and they make a difference to soothe her and calm her down. And even me, like right now, holding her versus, you know, being like, oh, she needs to sleep in her bassinet, otherwise, you know, she'll get into a bad habit. Like, there's just so many things. Looking back, I was trying to follow the protocol, or what I thought was a protocol, but there is no protocol. There is no one right formula. Actually, I was getting really confused, reading way too many resources with conflicting advice and guidelines, and I didn't even realize I was getting really confused with all of them because they conflict. It just added to my anxiety and confusion, honestly. But I think the other last thing I'll just mention is, you know, people say, follow your mom gut. And at the time, I just didn't even know. I was like, I don't even know. I don't have a mom gut. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. But I think over time, it slowly started to form, especially as I've been able to start thinking more clearly, operating like a human again, realizing like, okay, I've been learning some things here and there. Let's just try this and that. And I'm like a lot more calm now because I don't associate her crying with like a problem I need to solve right away, or taking it personally, like, oh my gosh, I'm such a bad mom if she's crying and I can't figure out why. Like, you know, like all the other moms I see online that don't have crying babies, you know. But it's just such a lie. So many moms have been texting with me and they're like, yeah, Instagram's a lie, social media's a lie. All those moms, they have it together. They seem like they have it together, but they're also struggling in their own ways, and you just don't see it. That's what I have to say about this one. I hope it encourages some of you who have your own first babies or have been having a hard time or just want to know what to expect going into it. It honestly is hard. I can see how parents don't really talk about this because it is hard to put into words like what challenges you'll run into and how to deal with them until you're actually in it. I think experience definitely is always the best teacher, but it doesn't hurt to hear other people's reality and their real struggles and stories. So hopefully by sharing ours, it'll help someone out there. And if not, it'll speak to my future self to remember all the tough things I went through and Alex and I went through. But we're coming out of it. Praise God. All right, to be continued. Follow along for more reality of newborn life, postpartum life, all the challenges that the social media world doesn't portray.